You're now listening to the 11:30 podcast. Enjoy the show.
Nasty, hateful, insane nation that ever existed.
Yo, what it do, everybody? It's your man Dre, aka Dre on Wheels. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the 11:30 podcast. What's goody, everybody going out there? Appreciate everyone tuning back in to another episode of the show. You know what time it is. It's not 7:30, it's 11:30. It's time for the podcast. We're going to get into it. But before we do, thank everyone for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, appreciate it so much. If you're new to the show, if you haven't done so already, I don't know what you're waiting for. Definitely smash the subscribe button, like it, leave a comment, and share it. Do all that great stuff. And don't forget to follow the 11:30 podcast on all social media platforms. But you guys, like I said, man, I'm excited. It's time for the show. We're going to get into it. Got a dope guest that's going to be joining me this week here on the 11:30 podcast. My guy, Chris Cox. He's an entrepreneur. He's a coach. You guys, man, he's a mentor. He's a host, a social worker for the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Service. We're going to be chopping it up with my guy, Chris, about everything he got going on. It's going to be a fun episode, man. We ain't going to waste no more time. We're going to get into the show. We're going to bring on my dope guest, man. Chris, what's going on with you, my guy?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on the show, Dre. I appreciate it. And that intro was fire, man. I was sitting there like, okay. I was bopping my head in the back like, yeah, this is nice.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot, man. I get many compliments on that, and I thank you so much. I thank everyone for the support and the liking of the podcast, man. But Chris, man, I like treating you, though.
Man, life is good right now. Like, it's a good morning. My nonprofit is doing well. Getting ready, even though it's early, getting ready for the football season, for high school football, and just enjoying every day that comes to me. So I'm super excited about it.
Okay. That's what's up, man. That's what's up. Got a lot going on. It's a great time to be alive, man, and just be blessed and grateful. So appreciate you once again coming through here on the podcast. For my listeners and viewers that's not familiar with you and don't know too much about you, tell everyone about yourself.
Well, originally I'm from New York City. So currently I live in Lexington, Nebraska. So that's way set in Midwest in central Nebraska. Quick story, I got out to the Midwest because of football. I went and played football at Morningside University, which is in Sioux City, Iowa, which is about 6 hours northwest of where I currently live at. And I just decided to stay. I met my wife and had two beautiful children who are 11 and 9 currently. And my wife and I have been together for just about 17 years. And within that, like you mentioned, I have been a social worker. I have been like a resource room teacher, and I've done a lot with mentoring youth and just being around kids in general. And my wife is the same way. She's much of a community organizer. If something is a problem somewhere, she's going to be the first voice you hear trying to fix it. And during COVID, there was a lot of problems and a lot of gaps everywhere. And one of the biggest gaps we saw was, in media coverage in the Midwest and not getting enough information in Spanish or in Somali, which are huge populations out here in the Midwest. People don't think that there's Black people out in the Midwest. They don't think there's people of color out here, but it's a huge population. And so we were missing that gap. So we started what we're currently doing right now, which is the United by Culture Media, which is using media to teach kids confidence and to make sure we are accurately capturing the stories of people of color in the Midwest. So that's the shortest version I can do it. Otherwise, we could be here for like 2 hours talking about everything. But yeah, I'm originally from New York. I was born in Harlem, raised in the Bronx, lived in Brooklyn. Been out in the Midwest since about 2001, and enjoy it, man, and loved it. Every time I've been out here, I loved it.
How was the weather in Nebraska?
Is schizophrenic, bro.
I
uh,
had to ask
it was
that.
like right now it's sunny and it's about 30, 32 degrees and sunny. And
Mm,
then Friday it snowed. So
mm.
yeah, so Friday it snowed and we're just getting thrown out from a pretty big like blizzard we had where we had like 4 foot snow drifts and stuff like that. So we're just thawing out from that now. So the
Okay.
weather gets crazy out.
Okay, okay. Yeah, here in DC it's pretty chilly now. A couple of weeks ago it was warm. We haven't got no snow all winter, so it's just like been a bipolar winter here in DC. Like everywhere else, like Maryland, Virginia, they get snow, or everywhere else get some snow. Not that I'm asking for it though, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying it's nice. It's nice here in DC. You said you moved all the way, to Nebraska for football, and you've been there for some time though. Football
Yeah.
has kind of been your passion
Yes.
since growing up, right?
Yes. I started playing like in the neighborhood. Like I didn't really get to do a lot of Pop Warner and stuff. My parents didn't have the money for that. Um, and so I didn't get to play Pop Warner. So I didn't play football, like organized football, until I got to high school, until my freshman year of
Okay.
high school. But I would play just in the neighborhood, like friends on my block. We'd go to other blocks and play them in two hand touch, which always turned into tackle. The cars parked on the side was out of bounds, so you get hit into the cars and stuff like that. So it created like a sense of toughness because believe it or not, I was always the small one. I was always the little one. And because everybody in my neighborhood was older than me. So everybody was like
Mm,
13, 14, 15. I was like 7 and 8. So I had to learn how to play with older kids all the time. So I was getting knocked around all the time. And then I got to
mm,
high school and played and was able to put on pads for the first time. And man, I loved it. I was like, this is awesome. I love football, and football has
yeah.
carried me through so many different places and experiences. It's been amazing.
Okay. Okay. I dig it. I dig it. Football is a great sport, man. That we all love though. But you said you played football. You start really getting into it in high school, but you also play collegiate football too, right?
I did. I had the opportunity to go play college football, Morningside University. Like I said, it's in Sioux
Mm,
City, Iowa, and I got a chance to go out there. They were actually, it was kind of a real like perfect nirvana moment kind of. I had got hurt my senior year of high school, so I mean, if anybody who's listening who ever played high school sports and you were pretty good, you started getting letters and just boxes of letters. Like I would have boxes of recruiting letters, right? And I got hurt and no more letters. No
mm,
more remains, like nothing. Like they just said, yep, not wasting any time on this young man. And so I actually went to a junior college first in upstate New York, and I was just going as a student. I wasn't even playing sports. And through a friend of mine's who happened to be in Iowa already, was like, yo, we're getting a whole new coach. The whole program is changing. A bunch of people are leaving. Do you still want to play football? And I was like, hell yeah. And he said, and this is back. And so all my young listeners, all the young listeners out here, this is back when you actually had to send a VHS highlight tape.
yeah.
So, and I was a mass media kid. So I was cutting tapes anyway. So I did my own highlight tape, put it in a VHS, put it in a manila envelope, sent it off. And like a week and a half later, I got a phone call from the coach and he was like, do you want to come out here and play football? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, I got a spot for you. And
Okay.
and that's how I got out there.
Okay, okay. Was the dream ever making it? Obviously, playing football and growing up loving football. Was the dream ever to make it to the NFL, or you getting hurt in high school or college kind of like prevailed that?
The dream, you always want to go to the NFL. You always want to
Yeah.
get there and make it. But then what happens is when you get to college football, you start to understand the landscape of it. Like I said, like I was a lineman, so I played
Mhm.
center and guard. I'm only 6 foot tall, so my in shape playing weight, I was like 6 foot 285, right?
Okay.
Most linemen, like I went to like a regional combine and after I finished playing, most linemen there are like 6'4", 310, 6'5", 305. So you realize how you stack up, and you're like, this is not going to be this is not going to be the end all be all for me. Like, I'm not going to play football on the highest professional level. And I've had opportunities to play indoor football, arena football, which was really awesome. I played semi-pro football in Wisconsin, which is full contact semi-pro. I actually won a championship there. So I've actually played football up until I was about 35, and then I like retired. So pro football was a dream, but then you start to understand realistically what it means to go pro, and it's not just ability, because I had ability, coaches and different coaches, people said I had ability. I just didn't have the size to do it. And I didn't know if I wanted to be on that grind for like 9 years, just trying to make it to, and this is before they had the XFL and all these other places. Like, I didn't know where I was going to go after that. So after school and after football was finished, and before I started playing semi-pro, I kind of went right into work. But I was happy. I enjoyed my college career because I didn't know if I was going to make it to college. I was a starter in college. I started my entire time there. I was a captain. I had a wonderful time just playing college football.
Okay. Cool. It's funny that you just mentioned the XFL and how the XFL around right now by Dwayne The Rock Johnson and Danny Garcia, and how
Yep.
they given a lot of opportunities for football players who may have made it to the NFL, but just not there at the moment, or people who are trying to get to the NFL. What would you think about the XFL right now? Because I'm loving it, especially when it came back in 2020. Obviously, the season and the season got cut short because of the pandemic, but it's doing well and thriving right now. And I just wanted to ask you, opinion on that.
I love it. I love the XFL, and I really, I really dug the USFL as well.
Yeah.
I like, what I really like what Danny Garcia and The Rock, which I think is it's so cool. It's also kind of weird and cool that they're like ex-husband, ex-wife, but they work so close
Yeah.
together.
I,
It's
I
like
always said that. I
it's
always
like
said that about the Rock.
that's it's a lot, like but it must have been something that was amicably, and they continue
Yeah.
to work together, and they make a really good product together. I
Mhm.
like the rule changes that the kickoff rule change, I think, is amazing, because as a coach, I think it's going to force special teams coaches to be very creative in how they teach special teams, and then how they design special teams plays to allow for touchdowns or to gain better field position. So I think it's going to definitely reinvigorate some special teams coaches and allow for innovation. So I really do enjoy that. I enjoy the punting aspect as well. Like, you have to punt it so it's able to be returned, because they want the game to be continuously exciting. So I think it's going to force punters to even be more accurate and force them to work on their hang time. And it's going to make sure that, again, special teams coaches get faster players on that punt and punt return, so they can either cover or block. Like Marquette King, I think his big leg is really helping him, because he's booming those kicks on sky high kicks, and it's hanging in the air, and they're returnable, but it's giving time for his coverage team to get down there and make a tackle. So I enjoy all the innovations. I like the football product out there. It gives guys an avenue to get on the field, to get seen. Like, I was just watching some highlights from the game the other day. Will Likely, he was in the USFL. He's always around the ball. I think he plays for Houston now on the XFL. Number 4, he's a defensive back. I feel like he's already scored 2 or 3 defensive touchdowns this year. He's also a kick returner. And then when he played in the USFL, it was the same thing. He'd get a fumble, take it for a touchdown. Get an interception, take it for a touchdown. He'd return a kick for a touchdown. He's a guy, hopefully, the NFL gives a look, like Kavontae Turpin for the Cowboys, who went to Cowboys and is now their return specialist. So, I mean, there's guys that can go play if they're just given the shot to
Yeah.
shine and to be able to say, look, I can play at a high level. Look at Josh Gordon. He's the league leader right now. So hopefully his off the field stuff is taken care of. And even at 31, he has very little miles on his body because he's only played maybe 4 full seasons. So he
Yeah.
might get a shot to come back to the NFL and play some football. So I enjoy the XFL.
Yeah, I definitely dig it. I definitely dig it. I think it's a lot that the NFL could learn from the XFL. Even in 2020, before the season got cut short, a couple of things that the game itself and all the rules I love, in general. But I love the kickoff because in the NFL you get a whole lot of touchbacks and. When you kick for a kick with, or, just kicking the ball off after, you score or in the beginning of the game, it just seems pointless and stuff. So I like how you got to kick it within that 20, yard line, or
Yep.
that is cool. And also, not too many people go for the extra points. The 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point conversions. So I think is definitely wonderful in how excuse me, The Rock brought this football league from a former boss of his, Vince McMahon, who he used to wrestle, and how The Rock had played college football and didn't make
Mm.
it to the NFL, and now he's the owner of his own football league. So it's a full circle. That's kind of dope,
Yeah,
right there, though.
definitely.
Well, while you were playing college football, you were the advocate for a group called Cross by Colors, though.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So, like I said, I went to school in Sioux City, Iowa. So it was a huge culture shock for me coming from New York City, coming from the Bronx, being an inner city kid. I'm starting my lock journey, so I have my locks are not super long yet, but back then I had braids and I had long braids down on my shoulder, and I had a gold fronts. This is the era of Wu Tang. I had a big old Jesus piece chain. So it's a whole different era, right? A whole different personality that I was portraying. And so coming from the inner city and then going to Sioux City, Iowa, it was like one of those movies when you walk into like a restaurant or a bar and the record just scratches and stops and everybody looks at you.
Yeah.
That's how it was when me and a couple of my like friends who came from New York who got recruited. That's how it was when we got off the bus in Sioux City. It was like the record stopped. Everybody was like, yo, who are these guys? And there was just things that were lacking. The city was growing and it wasn't growing fast enough with its population. So just creating that group on campus for a lot of the kids of color who happen to be athletes, a lot of us can have a place where we can talk with ourselves and talk about what's going on, but B, so we could come together and bring any of our you know gripes, misunderstandings, we could bring it to the school. We could bring it to the administration and be like, how can we get this fixed? Or bring it to the community. I mean, something as simple or as what people may think is innocuous as hair care products, being able to have that stuff in the store and going to the community and say, hey, this is your community is growing of people of color. You need to start getting some of these things in your store so we can shop there. And so that's what that group was all about. And also just bringing camaraderie and community on campus. And we did a lot of work with the international students. Like, oh, that was some of our greatest memories hanging out with the international students from Ireland and Japan and Serbia. And we would just all hang out because we felt like we were close together because we weren't from there. So we would just hang out and we'd have little food parties, which turned into a culture cuisine night, which we'd all cook the commons area, the food area, the food staff would let us use the big kitchen, and so we'd all cook dishes from all of our cultures and native countries, and we'd have music, and we'd be able to present that to the school as like a cultural event, and it was really awesome. So it was my first taste of organizing and understanding how to advocate for myself due to my color and due to my ethnicity.
Okay, okay. I dig that. I dig that. But going and living in Nebraska, was it? Did you experience any? Did you experience any challenges? Probably not being or just being one of the few black people
Yeah,
on
yeah,
campus.
yeah. And in Iowa, yeah. So I had a cross put on my car, like like a white supremacist car, a cross, and I had a note on my dorm room door that said "niggers go home." So I experienced that like at the school because, like I said, most of the African American or most of the people of color that were on campus were athletes, and we were from out of state. There was maybe like one or two kids that were of color that were from Iowa. Everybody else either were from Omaha, Nebraska, or from California, or from like New York, or Florida, or Texas, or Minnesota. So there wasn't a lot of people that were from Iowa that were of color. And so we experienced stuff like that, or like we go into stores and people will watch you, or people would refuse to put change in your hand. Like that happened to me a couple times. Um, you get the hey, can we check your bag when you leave when you leave a store type of thing.
Mhm.
So like that stuff happened, and it really like used to piss me off, and I'd be so upset. And then I had to shift it into, okay, how do we fix this? How do we start advocating to get these things changed in the community? And again, that's where kind of cross by colors came out. So I experienced that, and it hurt. Like when I had that put on my door and said "niggas go home," I was like, wow. Like I was ready to
How
be
did,
on some fight
yeah.
stuff, but
How did you deal with that adversity? And that challenges. Dealing with the racial.
you know what? I definitely punched the wall a couple times. And this is right after Higher Learning. So if anybody ever watched Higher Learning and you seen that fight scene that happened, you kind of wanted to go out on some like Busta Rhymes, Ice Cube tip. But then you have to realize that it's not going to work. Like this ain't the movies. You're gonna go to jail. It's gonna be a whole different
Mm,
story. So the anger and even the embarrassment of having someone see you as that, because especially for me coming from the East Coast, coming from New York City, all everybody hung out together. Like
mhm,
if white kids grew up in your neighborhood, y'all like white kids, Puerto Rican kids, black kids, we all hung out together. Like you was all from the Bronx. And then I didn't experience that level of, oh, I don't like you because you're black until I got to Iowa. And so the first thing I did like was be angry about it and like punch stuff and curse things out and be real bitter. And then the second thing that I did was I just sat down and started talking to a couple like my teammates about it, like expressing myself, some of my like white teammates. And they were like, "Man, I didn't know that happened. That's crazy." And then feeling that they were like, "Yo, we got your back. If something happens, we got your back." And then the third thing I think was getting with others and starting cross by colors. And then the last thing I did was um, I let people in. Like I started to be more talkative to other people because again, I'm from the East Coast, so you don't really say hi to people you don't know, and you
mhm,
just kind of keep it moving. And so when I got to college, I was still like that. But in the Midwest, everything is high, regardless if they know you or not. If they see you and they say, "Hey, hi, how's your day? How you doing?" And I wouldn't respond. So what I found out is people were afraid because they thought I was always mad. They thought I was always angry.
mhm.
And then I'm big, and then I got braids, and then I'm not, you know what I mean? So it was a whole aura that they was just like, "Oh, we can't approach him." And I didn't realize that. So I started talking to one of my friends who was on the basketball team, and he's a white dude, and we're still friends today. And then he told me the next day that some people came up to him and was like, "What? Are you okay? We saw you talking to Chris," and they were like, he was like, "Yeah, that's my guy. It was my friend. We was, chopping it up at lunch, whatever." And they were like, "He talk, he's nice. He talks to you," and then that's the first time I understood perception, and people were perceiving me a certain way. Now, does that excuse the intolerance and the racism? No, but I did understand how I was being perceived. So I started to remove my inner city shell, so to speak, or my shell that I had growing up. I started to remove some of that shell and uh, live within my current surroundings instead of being trapped in what my previous surroundings were. So I think all those things together helped me deal with that adversity I was facing.
Okay, okay. With that adversity that you were facing, helped you start your nonprofit organization and also United by Culture.
Yeah, it was definitely a part of it. It was the beginning. It was the seed I didn't even know. Like I said, it was the first time I had advocated for myself, honestly, for anything. Like advocated for myself and then also advocated for others based on our either shared ethnicity or shared the fact that we were of color or shared the fact that we were not from the state of Iowa. So that was the first time I had done that. And so that was the beginning. That was my teaching and my learning process. And then every stop along the way has been a building block in that. So me being a social worker in Milwaukee helped me understand that more too, than me being a resource teacher when I lived in Wisconsin, and then me coming back to Nebraska and working as the program director for the YMCA. All those things helped me. And also being on my wife. My wife is a huge impact on my life. My wife has a degree in political science, so she's the one that watches the news every day.
Okay.
And she watches the news and she's like yelling at the screen about stuff, but she doesn't just yell. Like she's like so very solution based. So she's like, okay, how do we fix this? How do we do this? And like I said, we started United by Culture Media because there was an immigration raid in a town over, and she went down to that town for like 3 months and did a lot of work to help put that town back together and make sure families got reconnected. It's a whole lot of work. It was in O'Neill, Nebraska. And then she said, and her and a couple other people that she was working with and creating a network, they were like, how do we represent our community through all of this negativity that's happening? How do we put a smile on our faces and also invite other people in? And the natural response was, let's throw a party. So we started this huge event called the United by Culture Festival, where we celebrate all the cultures that live within this community. And it was a hit. It was like a success. And so that was the first big shoe that dropped that said, okay, this is something we have to do. And then during the pandemic, like I said, there was so many gaps in media coverage and information out there about COVID-19 in different languages and within our community that we decided to create a media company and put our story out there. Like we started in the basement with a cell phone and like a $20 microphone I brought off of Amazon. And we were just doing informational videos in Spanish and English, just getting that information out there. And then after that, we said, well, we can do this for real. And so we made a pact. We started doing business meetings with me and my wife downstairs on Saturdays while the kids watch TV. And we said, okay, we got enough money for 6 months to do this for 6 months without working. And if after 6 months we don't get grants or we don't get funding, then one of us will go back to work and we'll still keep working on this until we're able to go full time. And literally like month 5, the funding came in. And then we've been doing this full time ever since.
Hey, that's dope. That's dope. Was your wife yelling at the TV because all the lies that the news was telling us, or
Yeah,
at least
the
telling us black community about the COVID-19 and stuff? Also.
she was yelling the misinformation, but the misinformation and the no information.
Mm,
And because again, we live in Lexington, Nebraska. It's a meat packing town, like Tyson. You know, we get Tyson chicken, Tyson meats. That
yeah.
plant is in our town, and so there was a lot of misinformation to keep workers working, so they could supply everyone. But we had people in our town, a lot of people in our town that died from COVID that worked in the plant, that they weren't getting adequate PPE, so that's personal protective like gear and stuff like that. They weren't getting adequate information about going to the doctor in the hospital, and to be able to be off of work if you're sick, because they're a big employer of people in our town. And some wife was like, you know, so she went at them. So this one lady went at an entire place, and you know, she had people from the Washington Post come down, and the New York Daily News came down, and they interviewed her, and then she started a program called the Angel Fund with help from other investors to be able to give COVID-19 relief funds to workers who were undocumented because they were left out in the cold and weren't able to get any COVID relief funds. So I mean, she did such an amazing job in doing that and trying to just combat that problem that was affecting our community.
Mhm. Yeah, we need more. We need more black entrepreneurs, and just more people such as like ourselves in our community that can tell the news, because not everything that that we see on the news is true, or at least they're not telling us the full story. So I dig what you're doing, and also what your wife doing by creating United by Culture. You want to you do movies and stuff also, right?
Well, that's what my personal part of it, because I'm more of the media guy. My wife is like,
Okay.
let's take down the system. Wife
Yeah,
is like, let's
okay.
take down the system, right? Excuse me. And I'm like, cool, let me film it. So like we have to be on social media. So I do all like the tech stuff. So all like the all
Okay.
anything that has to do with any of the podcasting tech, the camera tech, the video tech, producing the live segments. I make sure I do that. And then I, you know, also help with, you know, grant writing and teaching of the classes. But my personal thing I want to branch out into is to teach kids. One, to do myself is to do a narrative movie. And then two is to teach kids how to do it with as little um, equipment as possible, you know, because our kids always feel like we don't have this or we don't have that, so we can't be creative. And so trying to
Mhm.
teach them how to be creative with the cell phone that's in their pocket, or the camera that's collecting dust in their parents' house, and just be creative and just make something. It doesn't have to look like Transformers the movie. It just has to be creative. It just has to be something that you did. And so I did a little short film with my daughter about being late for school, and she really enjoyed that. And then I got to work as like a second AC on a behind the scenes camera operator, excuse me, on a independent film in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I got to do that. So that was really awesome. So my goal is to branch out and do more of that, and then be able to teach more of that to the students that are involved in their after school programs.
Okay, okay, man. It seemed like you were speaking to the younger me for real, because like I didn't have much of anything like an iPad, a phone, a nice phone to do what I even wanted to do, and all you got to do is just be creative and just do it. And man, oh man, like that was me, because I didn't know how to. My brother helped me out with a laptop, and my fiance had a laptop, and she gave it to me because she saw what I was doing with the podcast. But
Hmm.
at the beginning, man, I was just like, I know what I want to do, but I don't have what I want to do. So I guess maybe I can't do it. But things came around, and so you just got to be creative. And definitely with the phone, instead of just pulling it out and recording everything you see, just do something productive
Yeah.
with it, man. I,
Yeah. There's so many ways to set your phone up in the settings that so that way it could help you record better videos, so that way you
Mhm.
can feel proud of your work. And then speaking to like starting off, like I know I said I started off in the basement, right? And then I started off with podcasting too, because my wife was like, you need to talk about, because I love anime. Like I am an anime junkie,
Okay.
and I never really got to talk about it in my youth, like because it wasn't cool back then. Now it's cool. Now it's mainstream. Now everybody in the hood love anime, but back then it was not cool. Like I had to go all the way to Chinatown to go get my movies. I had to go to the back of Suncoast Video to, like it wasn't cool back then. And so she was like, you need to talk about it. And so like with $100, I think I brought this podcast kit off of Amazon, like $140. And that was what I did. And then my actual first ever podcast, I just did it with my phone and a set of earbuds. And I was on Anchor, and I was an Anchor OG when you can only do 5-minute recordings. And right. So I did 2 5-minute recordings and put out a 10-minute podcast in my car over lunch. And that was, that's where I started from. And like now we have a studio and we have all this stuff that we can show kids to use. So it's just, if you're gonna do it, go do it. Find a way to do it.
Hey,
It don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent, and you have to get it out there, and you have to
mhm.
do work. And
Yep.
the positivity will find you, and you'll be able to do better and better work after that.
You right there, man. All facts, man. Consistency and just go at it, man. I started with just my phone and podcasting. Like if anyone, listening, anyone new to the podcast, you go back to the very first video, man. I was doing it with my phone and I didn't have so much data. It was an Android phone at that. So that's
Yeah.
not even that's another topic for another podcast. But it was an Android phone. I ain't have no data. So something my screen had got cracked on my front camera
Yeah.
screen had got cracked, so I had to turn the phone the opposite way to record and
Yeah.
adjust it and making sure I'm in frame. And
Yeah.
one time I realized I done did the episode, I done talked, maybe it was about 20-30 minutes. It stopped recording 15 minutes in.
Mm.
So I was like, oh man, just the struggle and just got to keep going with it, man.
Yeah.
That gift is there and just keep going with it though. I dig it. I dig it. You talking about teaching kids and stuff, and you also a coach for middle school right now.
Yeah.
What's the main goal of teaching kids and teaching the youth, and also just being a coach for football.
Well, of course, like we talked about earlier, I love football. Football
Yeah.
is I have such a passion for it and such a respect for it, for the things that it has allowed me to see. And so yeah, I was the head coach of middle school for 3 years, and then I just
Okay.
got hired as the offensive line coach for the high school for the varsity team. So I'm actually going to be changing roles this year. So that's very exciting for me to be able to kind of move up, and I lose a little control. I enjoy being head coach, but I also enjoy working with. I mean, I'm going to work with a bunch of kids that I coached the last 3 years, so that's going to be pretty cool. Coaching kids is awesome because you get to share the passion that you have for something, and you get to pour it into them. You get to pour that passion, that knowledge into them, and then when that light goes on, when they get it, it's so awesome to see it, because you're like telling them to do something, telling them, you're showing them, telling them, you're repping it. And then they get out onto the field. And in that moment, when they do exactly what you've repped and practiced for God knows how many hours, and they do it well. And then they're just like successful at it. You're like, and then you see that light go on and they recognize, oh, I can do this. And then you see that confidence brew up and they become a whole different player. And I think that's the coolest thing about coaching is you take a kid that's like their first year, or they're scared, or they don't really know, they're timid, they don't have a lot of confidence in themselves. And then you see the light go on, you see the confidence build. Man, that's cool because they're a whole different person. And then
Okay.
it's the same thing with teaching. because we, with United by Culture, we do after school programs for free. So we, provide like laptops, we provide podcasting equipment, we provide cameras and everything, so kids can have access to this stuff for free, because all the kids they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. Um, Back then they were on Periscope, when it was on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they're all making content in some sort of way. They're all being on screen in some sort of way. But we're trying to teach them how to put a message to it, because they all have something to say. They don't know how to say it, and they don't believe anybody wants to hear it. So they just keep doing the regular trends that they know everybody likes. But once you teach them how to say what they want to say and how to be confident in it, again, a whole different person. They start to create a whole different style of content. And if we can do that, and I'm not saying we're elevating content, because some of the creativity on TikTok and Instagram is amazing. But what we're doing is allowing kids to actually share their story. Because if you're a person of color, you're a child of color in Nebraska, then you there are some of them that don't feel connected to their ethnicity. They don't feel connected to their cultural story. So for us, our goal is to dig deep and reconnect them to their culture, reconnect them to their ethnicity, and be able to create their content in Spanish or create their content in Somali or whatever it may be, and just give them the tools to do that. Because the long form goal is, if you can create a podcast and stand in front of a podcast, or you can create a video and stand in front of a video, then when you are in high school or beyond, then you can come to school board meetings and talk and advocate for yourself and advocate for your classmates. You can run for a office within the community, again, so you can advocate for your community, advocate for your culture, advocate for your ethnicity, so we don't continue the same negative cycles that have happened.
Okay. Okay. I dig it. I dig it. Quick question. What advice would you have for the youth? Youth growing up in a not so maybe diverse community, and also to the youth athletes who may just think that the pros is is the be all end all, and we all know that it's a very small percentage that really make it, and also just having a backup plan, like how you is in mass media and got other stuff, and you was real happy right after football and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, what advice would you have for the youth?
I think if I'm starting with the athletes, my advice would be, don't allow your sport to be your only identifier in life. You will always be a basketball player, baseball player, football player, gymnast, etc. That's always going to be something that you did. But don't let that be the only thing. Don't wrap yourself up into that as a security blanket, and then you lose your real sense of self. And I say that because if you love anime, be someone that loves anime and plays basketball. If you love cooking, or you love reading, or you want to write, or anything like that, you love history, you want to talk about history, allow yourself to be multifaceted. Don't sit there and say, oh, I'm just an athlete and I got to put all my eggs in the athlete basket and I got to make it. It's a very small window to make. It's a great goal to have goals, but also understand that that's not the only thing you are. So that way, if you don't make it, you're not completely crushed and you're like, well, what am I right now? You don't want to have that feeling. So be multifaceted and don't wrap yourself up in only the sport you play, because you're more than that. You are more than just one thing. And then for kids that are of color, that are growing up in where they feel like they're the only, and I will say this to the parents, because it's more so the parents, do your job and keep your child connected to the culture and the ethnicity regardless of where you live, because it's hard for kids to do it on their own if they don't have that support coming from parents. If you don't continue traditions, even if it's something as simple as food, keep the food traditions alive, keep the Thanksgiving traditions alive, keep whatever it is that you grew up doing as a child, keep doing that with your kids now and keep them connected culturally. Keep the music playing in the house. If you woke up to Anita Baker on Sundays and you had to clean, you better put on Anita Baker on Apple or Spotify. And you better clean with your kids, because you don't want to put on Anita Baker in your car and the kids don't know who that is. Like, my kids know who Prince is. I love Prince. I put on Purple Rain and Let's Go Crazy and everything. They know it. Because that's part of me and that's part of what I grew up in. And my dad loved Prince, and so that's a way to me to stay connected to my dad, and my kids can stay connected to their grandfather. And my wife, she plays Spanish music in the house, in the car, all the time. And that's a way for my kids to stay connected to their grandparents and their cousins who are Guatemalan, who speak Spanish. So as parents, we have to do that job and keep our kids connected. And then it makes it a little easier for our kids to understand themselves and be a little bit more sure of themselves.
Okay. I dig that. I like that. I like that. And Chris, man, what keeps you motivated? What inspires you?
I know you mentioned him earlier, The Rock. The Rock is someone that's always inspired me, because
Mhm,
it was always a switch up for the positive. Like, everything was all about football, and then he didn't make it, and then he was like, "All right, I'm gonna do this wrestling thing. I didn't want to do what my dad did, but I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna do it big. And then, you know what? I kind of like this acting thing, so I'm gonna keep doing this. You know what? I kind of like this business thing, so I'm gonna keep doing this. I like this liquor thing. I'm gonna keep doing this. You know what? I want to rap. Let me let me holler at Tech Nine and rap. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I love it because, it, again, he didn't just say I'm an athlete and wrap himself up in his athletic prowess, or I'm not going to wrap myself up in my body. Like, I'm not my muscles. He's proven to be such an intellectual person. And, I, on my, one of my, like, organizing, apps on my computer called Notion, I have one of his quotes. He said, "You got to wake up because the rent's due." You know what I mean? You got to get up. You got to have that mentality. Rent's going to be due. So you got to put work in every day. And so it every day motivates me. So he's someone that's a motivation to me, but every day is to get up and do something, either whether I'm coaching kids in football, or whether I'm teaching my after school programs, or whether I'm trying to parent my children. Every day in itself motivates me. And, you know, I enjoy that. That's what gets me to the gym in the morning. That's what keeps me motivated with my children. That's what keeps me motivated in football. That's what keeps me motivated to teach after school programs when I'm tired. I'm like, man, I just wish I can go home early, So just
okay.
every day in itself, man.
Okay, I dig it. I dig it. Same for me, man. Life in general, just every day, just waking up, and it's another day that God allowed you to just go right back at it. Tomorrow is tomorrow. I mean, yesterday was the past, and the future is looking bright. And you talk about The Rock, man. It don't get no bigger for me than The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, because I'm a huge wrestling fan. If you didn't know, for everyone probably know, I'm a big fanatic. And growing up in the Attitude Era, was my guy was The Rock. So everything he did was I just loved everything he did. So yeah, he went on the movies and loved the story, and how he tell it in his TV show Young Rock. So I'm
Yeah.
loving what he's doing. So that's what you got to do, man. You just can't get wrapped up in one thing also, and just gotta get keep going after it, man.
Keep
Keep
going.
going
I
after
mean,
life.
the Rock had everybody wearing the Versace's, but everybody had the fake Versace shirts. They have the fake silk Versace.
Exactly.
Man,
Yeah.
at the corner, the clothing stores in the hood, everybody was rocking the Versace shirts, man.
Yes, man. Everybody was rocking the shirts and also trying to raise an eyebrow while rocking one.
Yeah. Hey,
Oh
the
man.
shirts and the glasses, everybody thought they was fly back in like 99, 2000. If you had that on in the summer, you was fly.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. All facts, man. Okay, you guys, man, we having fun chopping it up with my guy Chris here on the 11:30 podcast. We're gonna move on, man, to our next segment here on the show. It's time for the 11:30 podcast. Hot seat, you guys. All right, Chris. It's time for the hot seat. I got 6 questions for you, and we're gonna roll with it. You ready?
All right, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, all right. You can start. If you could start in a film, what would it be?
If I was starting a film or starring in it.
If you could start a film, yes. Start
Okay.
a film.
If I was to make a film, I would want to make a comedy. I love comedy. That was my first like love of things, and I think I would love to make a comedy film. Like, because
Okay.
everyone wants to make a hood classic, like you want to make Friday, right? You know, so I would love
Yeah.
to make a comedy film and for it to be good.
Okay. Okay. Cool. 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 You can go anywhere in the world right now. Where will you go?
Japan. I go to Tokyo, and
Okay.
I would go into some of the like even some of the Tokyo and then the smaller prefectures, and I would just hang out and enjoy the beautiful scenery.
Mm, okay. Okay. Next one. What is Chris' biggest pet peeve?
What is my pet peeve? Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
I don't do man like every like mayonnaise like you can't when people say like, I hate when everything is mayonnaise based and it's always mayonnaise and ketchup or mayonnaise and pepper and it's just I don't know, I just don't like mayonnaise, man. Like it don't go on. It's not a natural thing, so I don't like it.
Okay. Okay. I'm right. I'm right along with you. I don't get down with mayonnaise though.
Oh,
Just some the simple fact because it have eggs in it, so I have kind of like an egg thing going on. So can't eat eggs. So yeah.
I will say this. Another like big pet peeve is people that don't put on their turn signals. That drives me insane when I'm driving. I get so mad at that.
I will imagine. I definitely would imagine. I've been in the car with a couple people screaming because people don't know how to drive or they just didn't turn on some turn signals.
No,
So
it's
I get
frustrating.
okay. Uh, favorite time of the year.
Favorite time of the year? Football season. Easy. As soon as football season
Okay.
starts. So basically July out. So anywhere from July all the way into November. That's my favorite time of year.
Okay. Okay. And you said football though. Who your team?
My team, Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and most people think,
Okay.
oh, you're supposed to be a Giants fan. I stopped being a Giants fan when Rodney Hampton, they let Rodney Hampton go. I stopped being a Giants fan. But Pittsburgh Steelers is my NFL team, and Michigan Wolverines is my college team.
Okay. Cool. 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 Okay. What's the biggest red flag in a relationship?
Biggest red flag. Lying.
Lion.
Like when
Okay.
like not being truthful. Um or that feeling that someone isn't being truthful with you. Like everything they tell you is like 50% true, to try to
Mhm.
make you believe it, but you're like, this sounds kind of funny. That's a big red flag for me.
Okay. Okay. All right. Last one. All right. A film about your life. What actor would be suitable to play you?
Oh, I gotta look up his name. I don't know his name, but he was in the TV show Cloud 9, and I gotta look his name up because I don't know his name, but him and I look similar, and so I think he would be a great actor to play me.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Cool.
th-
Cool. Cool.
yeah,
You
he
know who it
looks.
is?
I'm looking it up. I'm actually looking it up right now. I'm sorry. The show's called Superstore, but
Okay. I know you're talking about.
yeah, his name is Colton Dunn, and so him and I look very similar, and I think he would play me and be very funny.
Okay. Okay. That'll be dope. That'll be dope. Big comedy fan though. Man, look at Chris, man. I appreciate you coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show. Speaking of comedy real fast, have you seen the Chris Rock comedy special?
I did. I actually watched it a couple nights ago. I did.
Okay. What's your thoughts on it real fast?
Coming from like bigger and blacker and those when they were just he just like felt like he tore the house down. It felt like he held back. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like also he's reached a certain level that his comedy not because it's bad. It doesn't connect with people because he's so rich and so elevated. Like he was trying to make jokes about his daughter being in a private school and, being spoiled and pampered. And not a lot of people can relate to that. So it's hard to find the humor into that because he's just so far beyond in terms of his lifestyle. I think he should have just went all in on Will Smith and just made the whole special about that night leading up to the slap. And I think that would have been universally funny. But then when he started talking about the slap, it seemed like he didn't talk about everything. He just was like, this, and that. Nobody was talking about Jada, and then he gave me a concussion. And then, all right, night's over. It'd have been nice. You know what I mean? It'd been nice if he'd have just
Yeah.
went all in. I'm like, and this mother Will Smith and blah 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 blah, and the whole night and made jokes about the whole night. I think it would have tore the house down. But it felt incomplete to me.
Yeah. A little bit. After watching it, it felt like everyone was saying when the slap initially took place that it was just a big publicity stunt.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
he went on a tour and he did this live Netflix special. Um, and he talked about the slap within the last maybe 10 minutes or so.
yeah. 10 minutes.
So yeah, and I think when they got right there and I was watching it with my fiance, was like, that's it, because I think everybody that's what everybody came for. Everybody came for to hear you talk about did it hurt? What was your thoughts on it? Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
So he only went 10 minutes of it. And yeah, that joke about being rich, like, not everybody's rich and stuff like that.
yeah. It's
But
just hard to. It was
so
like it was similar to Kevin Hart's last special because he was talking about having Jerry Seinfeld over and getting a pizza maker and all that stuff. And it's kind of funny, but it's like I can't relate to none of that because you at such a different level that even though it's funny, it's not funny because we can't relate to it. And I think that's why Eddie Murphy don't do stand up because Eddie Murphy rich. So it's like, what is he gonna make jokes of that people gonna relate to? So I don't know. I just wish he'd have did the whole thing about the slap because then everybody would have related to that, and I think it would have been
okay.
hilarious.
Okay, I agree. I got you. But once again, Chris, man, I appreciate you coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show. Really dope having you on, my guy. But before you go, tell everyone, man, you got a podcast?
Yeah, I do. I have my own podcast. It's called the Wild Ones Podcast. I'm on
Okay.
Spotify. I'm on Anchor. Pretty much Google Podcast, anywhere you want to listen to a podcast. It's w.i.l.d one podcast, and it's an acronym for Working in Love Daily, where we like to celebrate people who work in their love and be able to spread their joy, whether in their community, through nonprofit, through teaching, through art, through whatever it is they do, if they work in their love daily. My wife also has a podcast called the Courageous Mujer Podcast, and that's all about celebrating Latina women in the Midwest.
Okay, that's dope. You guys, man, everyone who's watching and listening, man, the links will be down below. So definitely tap in and make sure you subscribe to Chris before you go. Also, you have any questions, any shout outs, anything you'd like to say?
I would like to just say thank you, Dre. Thanks for allowing me to be on your show. Thanks for reaching out to me. And it's really cool meeting you, cool having this conversation. I enjoyed it immensely. So thank you for giving me the platform to share my story and talk about what my wife and I do on a daily basis, man. I appreciate it.
Anytime, my guy, anytime. You're welcome back here, and also your wife will be welcome also here on the 11:30
Yeah.
podcast show. So that'll be awesome. Keep doing it, man. Keep teaching the youth and keep spreading the positive message. I like it. I definitely do like it. I'll be tapping into the show. Once again, all the links will be down below, and also you can follow and subscribe to my guy Chris's content. For real, it's been a great show, man. Dope show. But we're gonna take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm gonna wrap up the show. I got the WTF moment and more. Don't move. You're listening and you're watching to the 11:30 podcast. You dig?
For us, for our generation, we were raised that way. We were taught that, hey, certain things are okay for you because you're a boy. Boys can do this, girls can't. And so I grew up with that mentality. And even now, I look at things and I'm like, well, boys are a little tougher and they can defend themselves a little better, and they may have a little more I don't know, vigor or whatever. And, you know, females tend to be, you know, a little softer, a little more sometimes pliable, easily influenced, whatever it may be. It just, that stigma is there. And it may not always be the case, but I know for me, that's it's been embedded in me like that. So I think that's one of the big reasons that a lot of us have that mindset.
But that's what you want. It's that machismo we pass down. It's that I want to be better. It's the ego. Like we learn to feed our ego early on. Yeah. And some people never learn to overcome their ego. So what they do, they pass it down. So it's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but that's how I see it.
When it comes to that, it's I agree with both the brothers. First of all, my biggest thing is the foundation of like your upbringing, where you come from, what's at home. Because I know for me, like, I mean, it's crazy we're even having this conversation. My oldest three are girls. My youngest two are boys. And when my oldest daughter first decided she wanted to date, just starting right there, I said, first of all, you know, I hear them talking about it, but I'm old school, even though I'm not old enough to be as old school as I think I am. So, but my thing is, I told them, I said, I hear y'all talking, but just know nobody's coming by my house that I don't know and I haven't met. It starts there. And the reason I started there is because a lot of times everybody doesn't have that same foundation. So when you get to a space like around 13, 14, I had an older woman trying to talk to me. I was interested in artwork and football. You know, it was instilled in me, when you go to school, this is what you're looking for. Yeah, I like girls, but older women weren't that thing. So when it came down to me liking somebody, I weighed my options. Do I want to go to practice for football, or do I want to go talk to this girl at this particular age? Now, as I got older, you know, they kind of almost weighed the same. That we all not only process information differently, we learn differently, we express differently. So we get to a point where you have two men that become overly sensitive, or men who are exhibit too much testosterone, too much strength, because they're trying to find that balance. And a lot of times we're not shown that, but we're not told. Because I mean, it's hard for somebody who hasn't gone through what we have to go through from that era long before us, because they had to be that. They went through and they were taught by men who weren't allowed to be themselves. So when they're in a space that they're in, trying to teach us, I have a project I worked on. It's called My Black, and I talked about my father, because my father wasn't really a part of my life all while I was growing up. And there's a line on it, and I don't remember any of my stuff, so this had to be big for me. I normally freestyle it, I'll write it, I'll express it, and if I feel it, it gets published. So there was this line that I wrote. It said, I never knew my father. I never knew your father. Never knew how he was. But if you're an example of him, I can't be mad as your son. So the thing about it is, we get taught so many different things as men, but we're never taught how to be ourselves and try to figure out who we are so we can be strong. Know when to be submissive in relationships. Know when we should take the lead. Know how to take a partner, understand what it means to actually coexist with another person and not feel minimalized, not feel demeaned, not feel like we don't have to be on the defense, because our minds are in so many different places, even as men. And a lot of times they'll say women mature faster, but the thing is, we all suffer from that same issue of somebody telling us how we should be, whether it's people learning something from what they went through, or them getting to a point as to where what didn't work for them, oh, it's got to work for you. Let me try it again. And then we become a project of everybody who raised us and everybody who knows who we are. And now we're just pieces and parts of everybody else's vision but our own. And as men, we can't afford that.
Yo, we back here on the 11:30 podcast show. Appreciate everyone sticking with me throughout the break, man. It's been a dope show.
I want to shout out my guest who was on this week, my guy Chris Cox. Thank you for coming through here on the 11:30 podcast show this week, man. Great show, great time vibing with you, talking to you about being a mentor, being an inspiration, an entrepreneur, not just, for yourself, but also in the Black community and just in the community, what you're doing, man. So I love it. I definitely love it. Yo, man, shout out to the XFL, man. The XFL Defenders are undefeated. So the only good DC team. So I'm loving it. I'm loving the XFL, everything about it, man. But great time chatting with you here on the 11:30 podcast, my guy. For everyone, man, who want to tune in to Chris and chop it up with him, and just get caught up with him and follow him. All his social medias, his podcast link, everything will be down below, you guys. Man, been a great show. Coming back from commercial break, went to go get my little man. And he's sitting here, 8 months. He just like, man, what is daddy doing? He chilling right now. But man, yo, I'm about to head on out of here. But before I do, you guys, you know what time it is. It's time for the WTF moment of the week, you guys. Yes, WTF moment of the week, man. Yo, man, this WTF moment, man, it's not funny, but boy, oh boy, man, this is crazy though, right? All right. I know a lot of you guys are big fans of Family Feud, right? I know I am. I love Steve Harvey. That's my guy. Big, dope, inspirational guy. Kind of like what got me really with this whole, got me also started with this podcast journey too. All his motivational videos and stuff like that, and I definitely vibe with it. But nonetheless, though, Family Feud, a big TV show that come on every day, man, every day. And it was this family on, and I forgot the name. I was just looking at it during the commercial break. But yes, a Family Feud contestant, you guys, has been accused, and I believe he was charged of killing his wife.
He competed on Family Feud as his whole town cheered him on, but his local hero status is over now that he's been arrested, with cops calling him a murderer. They say he killed his estranged wife by shooting her multiple times in a crime being described as brutal.
Did this contestant on Family Feud murder his wife?
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Dressed in a bow tie and suit, Tim Bleefnick appeared polite and good-natured when he competed on the show. But now cops say he's behind the brutal killing of his estranged wife, Rebecca, a nurse and mom of 3. Her bullet-riddled body was found inside her home after she failed to pick up their 3 sons from school. When Bleefnick competed on Family Feud, listen to his haunting response to host Steve Harvey's question about wedding day mistakes.
What's the biggest mistake you made at your wedding?
Honey, I love you, but said I do.
The audience gasped, and Bleefnick attempted to clarify.
Not my mistake. I love my wife. I'm going to get in trouble for that, aren't I?
Yeah. Yesterday, when Bleefnick was arrested for murder, he had long hair, a far cry from his clean-cut appearance on Family Feud in 2020. The state attorney's office is calling it a home invasion and a case of domestic violence.
This horrific crime was not a random act of violence.
Rebecca had filed for a restraining order against her husband, and later he filed for one against her, according to published reports. Back when his family appeared on the game show, it was such exciting news. A watch party was held for all their friends. Bleefnick was also interviewed for local news in Quincy, Illinois, where he spoke about Steve Harvey's wardrobe.
So if he finds a snazzy dresser, when people really want to dress to impress, to be on the show, like he relates to that and he likes to comment on it.
Now Tim Bleefnick is making another kind of headline, one that no one who watched the popular game show would ever imagine.
Yeah. I know, that's crazy too, man. For real, man. Man, this has been a great show. Throughout the break, man, I brought my little man in here, man, just to, see him, for him to see me doing what I do. And he's looking at me, he's just like, "Oh, daddy, you doing your thing, man." And my little man is 8 months, man. He's crawling. Man, you give him a bottle, he gonna snatch it out your hand. He love Bluey, at least the song, I guess I'm talking about Bluey. Yeah, but I'm loving it, man. Just being a dad, and it's like time is flying. He'd be 1 in July, and just trying to be that big inspiration and motivational figure for him to do good in his life, man. Because I learned in life that I mean, we all got kids, right? And I was chatting with a guest last week, and shout out to Holly. Shout out to Holly. She said one thing that kids, one thing that used to go around, kids are not to be heard, they are to be seen. No, man, kids are to be heard, man. For real, kids need to be heard, and I want my son to, express how he feel and talk to me, man, because he's going to grow up to be a grown adult. He's going to grow up to be a man. So, like his mom the other day was he was crawling around and standing up on stuff, and she put little pillows down, and obviously, yes, man, the floor in the living room is hard floor, and you don't want him hit his head, and I don't either, but um it was like, yo, man, he's a boy, and he got to learn a little way. You don't want to cushion him up and soften him so much to where he, if you do fall, is foreign to him. It's like, oh my God, I don't know who this is because my mom shield me so much. But man, this is my little man. I love him, and yeah, man, he's gonna grow up to be an amazing boy, an amazing son, an amazing father, amazing human being, man. So and I was just talking about, that was my little girl. I was just chatting with the guys. Shout out to the guys, Jay from the Cognac Room podcast. Shout out to my guy Mario, Jay from At the Sound of My Voice, and my guy Will, man. I forgot his podcast. My bad, Holmes. But I appreciate you guys coming through on the live episode last week of Beyond 1130. It was real awesome having you guys on. We talked about double standards, and like I was just saying, that was my girl, man. Like, oh yes, there's a different vibe. You feel me? It's a different vibe. It's my little girl. I'm a man. I know how vicious dudes are out here in the world. You feel me? So you have to be a little different with your girls and everything. But at the same token, on certain stuff, you gotta kind of like treat them like my guy Moyo say. His daughters will start dating and everything. And now I'm gonna have the same MO, if my boys, doing the same thing. Ain't nobody coming over here. Ain't nobody pulling up. Dudes, girls, it don't matter. You feel me? Everybody's gonna be treated the same. So, man, definitely we talking about double standards and black men normalizing mental health. That's a conversation that's going to keep being talked about here on the 1130 podcast show and beyond 1130, man, because mental health is definitely important, man. But once again, shout out to all the guys who came on the show, the Cognac Rum podcast, At the Sound of My Voice, and shout out to my guy Will, man, for real, do his thing, man. Definitely check out that episode. Also, you guys, man, this week's commission talk, we're gonna be live on the 1130 podcast, Talk Pro Wrestling. I got the guys, Eric the Joker, host of the Wrestling Asylum, and my guy Buzzing with Marlo, Warren Marlo, host of Buzzing with Marlo. I do it all the time, man. I do it all the time. Yeah, man, it's going down, man. A live episode of Talk Pro Wrestling this week, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in to the last episode of Talk Pro Wrestling. And shout out to a future guest that's going to come on the 1130 podcast. Her name is Sharia Mahabir, and one thing she taught me, man, just go with what works, man. And the wrestling videos are doing really well. Not saying everything else isn't it, but everything overall is doing wonderful. But the wrestling videos is doing well. That's what I love, man. And I thank everyone for tuning in, and that episode is gonna come out soon as well. So definitely shout out to Sharia Mahabir. But man, great episode. Great show. Shout out once again to my guy Chris for coming through here on the 1130 podcast show. But let's wrap it up, man. We have to head on out of here. Don't forget to follow the 1130 podcast on all social media platforms. Follow me on Twitter at the 1130 podcast. Like the 1130 podcast on Facebook. If you haven't done so already, definitely hit that subscribe button down below. Follow me on TikTok, Instagram at the 1130 podcast _ my little man is halfway out the chair. Oh man, he's such a boy. Man, just follow the 1130 podcast on all social media platforms. Man, it's been a great one. From everyone, stay safe, stay blessed, give all the glory to God. From myself, Dre, aka Dre on Wheels, and my dope guest, man, Chris. Appreciate everyone. Until next time, I'm out.